String is a data type in Python that is used to represent text. A string is made up of a sequence of characters. In Python, you can define a string using either single quote or double quotes. Triple quotes can also be used to define a multi-line string. We will now learn more about working with strings. To define a string in Python, we use either single or double quotes. For example, string 1 has been defined using single quote, and string 2 has been defined using double quotes. It is important to match the quotes when defining a string. If you use single quote to start the string, you must use single quote to close the string. If you use double quote to start the string, you must use double quotes to close the string. If you need to include a quote character within a string, you must use the other type of quote to define the string. We can now go ahead and demonstrate how to define variables. And to define variables, you can either use single quote or double quotes. And so this is the first single quote, and you can as well use double quotes. If, for example, we decide to print this out, you can print the first one, string 1, and you can as well print string 2, just to confirm if both of them are the same. If I do print string 2, if I execute this, I get the same thing, which means that string 1 and string 2 are the same, despite being declared using different quotes. To define a multi-line string in Python, we use triple quotes. This allows us to include line breaks in our string. Triple quotes can be used with either single or double quotes. It is important to use the same type of quotes to start and end the string. Multi-line are useful for defining strings that contain a lot of special characters such as new lines, tabs, and quotes without having to escape them. We will learn more about this next. To declare a multi-string, then we can either use triple single quotes or we use triple double quotes. And if I execute this and print out string 3 and string 4, you realize that you're gonna get the same thing. Both of them have been printed out as two words, 2 lines each, which means this is another way you can declare variables, and it's particularly important if you want to use special characters like line break, tab, and you don't want to escape them. So that's where you can declare those. In Python, we can access individual characters in a string using indexing. Indexing allows us to retrieve a specific character from a string based on its position in the string. In Python, indexing starts at 0, meaning that the first character in the string has an index 0, the second character has an index 1, and so on. For example, if you define a string 1 and assign it a string called hello world, then if we decide to print the first character, then we are going to say print bracket string 1, then you use the square bracket 0, and then you close the square bracket and then close the print brackets. The output will be H, which is the first character. If you want to print the second character, then you have to use 1. in the square bracket, which will give you the character E. We can also use negative indexing to start from the end of the string. In negative indexing, the character in the string has an index of -1. The second to last character has an index of -2, and so on. For example, if you wanted to print out the last character, which is D, then we have to say print strings, and inside the square brackets, we have -1. That will give you D. If you want to print the second to last character, then you have to use -2. And the output will be I. String indexing is a useful tool for accessing individual characters within a string. To do string indexing, you first can have a comment string indexing, and you can also declare a string variable, maybe say string 1. String 1 has a number of characters, and remember to count we start from 0, 1, 2, and so on. And you can also do the negative indexing. This one is position -1, followed by -2, -3, -4, and so on. So if you wanted to index, then we can use square brackets after the, for example, you can choose to print out the first character. You can say is string 1, use square brackets and specify the position, the index. And the index is basically the position of the character. So for example, if you want to print out the first one, then you print out square bracket 0. If I execute this, you get H. H is the first one, which takes up the index 0. If, for example, I wanted to print out the second character, I just change this to 1 and execute. You realize you get H and E, E standing for the second one. So we've been able to print out the second character. And also you can do negative indexing. And for negative indexing, you start counting from the end. And we can actually print out the last character. All you need to do is just copy and paste this and change this to -1, which stands for the last character in hello world, which should be D. We can confirm that. And suppose we want to print the second to last, you just copy this, can have that, and change this to -2. If you print out this, you'll get D and L. So this is the second to last, which means you're taking -2. And that's basically how you can index a string. In Python, you can use slicing to access a range of characters within a string. To slice a string, use square brackets with the start and the end indices separated by colon. The start index is included, but the end index is not. For example, if you want to print the third, fourth, and fifth characters, set the start index to 2 and the end index to 5. The output will be LLO. If you want to print the first 5 characters, set the start index to blank and the end index to 5. The output will be hello. If you want to print the last 5 characters, set the start index to 6 and the end index to blank. The output will be world. You can also use negative indices to slice a string from the end. For example, if you want to print the last 5 characters, set the start index to -5 and the end index to blank. The output will be world. If you want to print the first 6 characters, set the start index to blank and the end index to -5. The output will be hello and the space. String slicing is a useful tool for extracting substrings from a large string. To do string slicing, then you can first declare a variable. We can call it a string. We can call it string and we can go ahead and execute. And basically to do some string slicing is that you want to select a piece of the string. For example, you might want to get the first three characters, or you might decide to get the last from 3, 4, and 5. You might decide to get the last 5. That's basically what we call string slicing. For example, if you choose to print out the 3rd, 4th, and 5th character, and we can have 2:5. What this actually means is that this is included, the start index is included, but the last, the end index is not included. So which means is that since 2, given that we start from 0 to count, then 2 is the 3rd character, the 4th character, and the 5th character. The 6th character is not included. I hope that is clear, because 5, index 5 is position 6. So if, for example, now we execute this, we get LLO. As you can see here, this is the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So this is 2 to 5, but 5, which is the space, is not included. That's why we are getting LLO. Similarly, if, for example, I choose to print out the first 5 characters, which means is character number 1, character number 2, character number 3, character number 4, and character number 5, we leave the start index to be blank, and we specify the end index to be 5. And if you execute this, you get hello. So those are the first 5 characters. And likewise, you can decide to print out character, the last 5 characters from character number 7 to the end. So you don't specify the end index, but you say 6. Remember, 6 now will be included. So if we count here, we have this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we are starting from 6 all the way to the end. So if I execute that, we get the word world. So the last 5 characters. We might also want to do slicing using negative indices. For instance, we might want to print the last 5 characters, but now using negative indices. So we can do this. We can say, because we want to print the last 5 and -5 has to be included. Remember, we have -5 starting from, this will start from -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. So W is -5, and we want to print the whole word, including W. And since we know that the start index is included during slicing, then we just have to say it starts from -5 all the way to the end, because the end has been left blank. So if I execute this, you get the word world. Again, you might want, for example, to print out the first 6 characters and see. So basically, we want to print all the way to, this is position -5. We can have the same thing here, but and switch the places of, instead of having the start index, we can have it in the end index. If we execute this, let's see what we get. We get, if you can see, you notice that if I highlight it like that, there is a space. The reason for this is because, as you can see, we are indexing from the start. This means that it's basically from 0, at the start of the string, all the way to index number 6, but not including that index -5, which means is that it's gonna come all the way to the space. It's from 0 all the way to -5, but not including that -5. So you are going to get the word hello and a space. I hope that is clear for slicing. There are several inbuilt functions that you can use when working with strings. We can use examples to demonstrate that. You can go ahead and define a variable called string and execute that. If, for example, you just take string and put a dot and hit tab, you'll see all these are functions that you can use to manipulate the string variable. So all I did was write the name of that variable, put a dot and hit tab on your keyboard. You'll see all different sort of functions that you can use to manipulate the strings. We can use some examples to do a couple of them. For example, you might want to check the length of the string. You can use the len function. The len function will basically count the number of characters in that string, including the white spaces. So if I execute that, we see that the length of string is 19. We can also convert everything to lowercase by using the lower function. And we can go ahead and execute that. We see that it's lowercase string is hello world. We see that h has been converted to lowercase. The next thing we can have a look is converting everything to uppercase. So we just use upper, but you have to start with string dot upper, and you can print out the resulting string variable is just the hello world, where everything has been converted to uppercase. We can also check, we can also capitalize the string. By capitalizing the string, what it does, it just converts, usually converts anything that was in capital has been converted to lowercase. So that's how you're able to achieve that. Then the next thing we can do is count the number of occurrences of a certain substring. For example, you might want to count the number of times L is appearing in your string hello world. And we know that hello world will have, those are 2 and 3. Let's confirm if the count variable will do it for us. Let's count and see. Let's execute that. We get the number of occurrences of L is 3, which is true. You can also check if the string starts with a given prefix. So here we expect to have maybe a true or false. So for example, we might want to check if the string starts with space and h. To check that, we use the function called starts with, all small letters or lowercase. If you execute this, we see that starts with space and h is true. Because it's true, this is how it starts with that. There's a space and a h. Luckily for this one, if for example we chose to change this to small and see what it does. If you execute, you see it's false. The reason, remember our string starts with a capital H, which means that this is being lowercase, it's false. It doesn't start with a capital H. So we can revert back to our initial capital H and execute, so you find that that is true. Also, you might also be able to check if the string ends with a given suffix. And to do that, we use here we can use this, check if the string ends with a given suffix. We use the function called ends with exclamation and a space, some couple of spaces. So if I execute this, I print out the variable, which is the resulting variable. You find it true. You can also check something else, like if, for example, I say, just copy the same thing and paste it there, and say maybe just add one space. Let's see what happens. If we execute that, we see that it's false. The reason, we have an extra space. we have an extra space in our string, but in this we only checked if it ends with some specific characters, but had one space deleted. The next thing that we can check using the inbuilt functions, is find the index of the first occurrence of a substring. For example, you might want to check at what index does the first O appear. So now this is the code that you can use, the function that you can use, find O. This will return the first occurrence of the string O, or the character O in our string hello world. So if I execute that, you see that it's position 7. That is index 7. And we can as well go here and count. We just use the arrow keys in the keyboard to count. This will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's in position 8. It occurs in position 8. The index is 8. It occurs after 7. That's why we are getting the first index to be 7. The index of first occurrence, it occurs after index 7. It's index 8, but it occurs after 7. The next thing we can do is we can replace occurrences of a substring with a new string. And to do that, we are going to use the replace. It's just like find and replace. And to do this, we find the occurrence of O and replace it with a 0. And let's see what we get if we replace and print out the variable that is created. You see, we have our hello world, but in this case, O has been replaced with a 0. So that's how it looks like. The next thing we can do with the strings is split them. We can split them based on something. For example, we can say split the string into a list of substring, and to split them, we are going to separate them with a comma. Yes. So you are splitting the string into different words and separate them with a comma. And remember, we said if it's enclosed in square brackets, that's a list. So the split function will always create a string of substrings. So the next thing that we can do is join a list of strings into a single string. And to do that, we normally use the join function. And the join function will just take the words and join them together. Remember, we created a substring, a substring containing a list. So all we want to do is we just want to join them together and add a comma. So if I execute this, we see we are getting hello, comma, world. So you are taking this and this and joining them with a comma. Hope that is clear. And the last thing that we can do, we can remove leading and trailing white spaces from the string. For example, we know that our string has some spaces before and some spaces after. And to achieve that, we will use the function called strip. And what strip does, it just remove the trailing and the leading white space. That's all it does. If we go ahead and print this, we see that our white spaces have been removed. And there are so many other functions that you can use. If you remember well, I told you that you can just write the name of your string and put a dot and hit tab on your keyboard. You will see all of them. Thanks for watching this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful and learned a lot about strings in Python. Stay tuned for our next video. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel to be notified when the next video is released.